Hello, welcome to the E09 show. I'm your host, John E09, and in this episode, I've not brought on any regulars because they were busy doing whatever. But for our guest, he is from Seattle. He is a writer, podcaster, adventurer, and chief crosser author of his bucket list. After more than 30 years working in the youth development and teaching field, a year of quarantine, and 2 heart attacks, youch, Roger embarked on an adult gap year to prioritize a life in which he is known not by his professional work, but by the way he lives his life and the people he grows relationships with. Now, he is traveling around the world to cross items off his bucket list and inspiring others to do the same. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Roger Williams.
Peter, thanks so much for having me. That was a great introduction, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Same. So, how's life right now?
I've been to 4 countries in the last 3 weeks and about 7 or 8 flights. So I'm tired. I have a little bit of a stuffed up nose, but for the most part, I'm doing well. Thank you.
Okay. And where are you right now?
I am in Trieste, Italy.
Oh, okay. And have you been out doing stuff while you're there?
No, I've just gotten here in the last couple of days, and my goal being here is to do some writing. And I've got a book in my head that I need to get out, so as part of my bucket list. And so that's what I'm here doing. And I am headed to Milan this weekend to visit some friends. But yeah, for the most part, I'm in a very quiet area of town, real close to the canal, and I'm able to bang on the keys and get some thoughts out.
Okay, great. What inspired you to do this?
Well, like you said in the introduction, back in 2020, I had a heart attack. I was in the middle of the pandemic, and when I got out of that, everyone's been going through a quarantine and having a rough time of it. A lot of trauma-induced stuff going on, and I just began thinking about who I was. It's those moments when you decide that, okay, now I need to really figure out what my life's about and what's going on. And the sense that I got was that I had always lived my life under the guise of what I did for a living. And that's a common question. When you meet somebody new, what do you do? Right. And so
Hmm.
I kept asking myself that question: what do I do? What do I do? And what I wanted to do was cross things off my bucket list. I wanted to be known for how I lived, what I did with the time that's not work or sleep. And so I changed my Facebook status for work to being the head crosser off for my bucket list, just to kind of see what people would think, and started writing out my bucket list items and my goals, and started crossing them off last August. So with a trip to Spain for a month, taking the journey across the Camino de Santiago.
Okay, that's great. And what other countries have you been to?
I've been to. I was in this trip. I was in Costa Rica and crossed off crashing a wedding before I went back to Spain for 2 weeks, and then I came over to Italy this week, and I'm going to be going to Israel and heading to London before I get home. But I've also been to Mexico and a lot of the Caribbean islands and Thailand and all sorts of places.
Okay, that's great. What was life for you growing up?
Oh, a pretty common middle class family in the United States. But my parents didn't travel a lot. We went to Disney World every couple of years, but not a lot of traveling. Certainly not outside the United States. And so would always love looking at National Geographic, and had that wanderlust inside of me that I needed to get out and do stuff and see the world. And so that was a part of my bucket list. I'm not necessarily a place oriented person on my list. I like to look at things like, what am I going to do when I get there? What is the purpose of the trip? Not just to see someplace, but what else can be a purpose for that? And that's really how I grew up. My parents were decent folks. It was in the Midwest in Indiana, and yeah, I enjoyed comic books and watching Saturday Night Live. Those were some of my favorite things. So,
Great. Now, before you went off going traveling, Oh, what did you do before that?
I helped work with high school students that were first generation college bound, meaning that no one else in the generation above them, their parents, had gone to college. And we helped them prepare for what that experience would be like, not having someone there to walk them through that. So we helped them with their academics as well as looking at schools, making decisions, filling out financial aid, all those kind of things. I did that for about 5 years. Before that, I was a teacher. And then before that, I did a lot of youth work in the church as well as just in general ran a nonprofit.
Okay, great. And whereabouts in Seattle are you from?
North of Seattle, it's a town called Linwood. I live there with
Okay,
my partner, and yeah, I love it in the Pacific Northwest. It's a beautiful place to be. It's a lot of fun. You can go to the ocean, you can go to the mountains all in the same day, and it's a beautiful place.
great. What do you like about traveling?
Oh, meeting people for sure. That has to be the top of my list. I was in Rome the other the other day, and I spent the day walking around. I walked about 9 miles, saw the old stuff, but wasn't really fulfilled. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do the Camino de Santiago was that you're forced to be around people you don't know, whether it's staying in a hostel albergue or it's just walking or it's having dinner. You it is a communal activity, and so that's part of the reason that I chose to do this 3 month trip through Europe again. I've seen, I think, about 13 or 14 of my pilgrim friends so far over the last 3 weeks, and I'm really excited going to Milan and being able to hang out with 4 or 5 more of them. So, really meeting new people, and honestly, just trying to give folks a different impression of what of what Americans can be. And so I always excuse myself by saying, "I'm sorry, I'm American. I didn't mean to do that," or different things like that, because it's just I think sometimes other people have a different impression of who we are. So just trying to be kind and nice and get to know people and continue those relationships afterwards.
Great. And what has been the high and low points of your journey so far?
Oh, missing my friends and family back home. Very much missing my partner. We've been together for about 5 years, and I miss her greatly. Still have about 10 more weeks to go, so 9 more weeks to go. So that's sort of that we usually talk most days via WhatsApp. And I think the high point is so far was I crashed a friend's wedding in Costa Rica. That had to be the major high point so far.
Okay. And tell me more about the places you've previously been before you've arrived in Italy.
Yeah, we went to Costa Rica. My partner and I did. It was kind of a send off to me because I was going to be gone for 12 weeks. And we went to Ponferrada. Is that right? No, sorry. We went, um, gosh, I don't even remember. It's near the mountain, or that's a volcano in that area of Costa Rica for a week. Stayed in an Airbnb that had a pool. It was really fun and tried to avoid seeing the wedding party while we were there. So I have two friends that I met all again on the Camino. They were getting married, and we had a dinner one night. We had this all this talk about their wedding, that it was going to be a destination wedding, small, 50 people, and and so we talked about, oh, we're all going to crash this wedding, and some other people got invited, and then when I didn't get invited, I'm like, all right, I'm going to crash that wedding. So we went down there, and the night of the wedding, we showed up after the reception after dinner, and it was a ton of fun. We just came for the party, and the bride was absolutely giddy as anything. She was screaming, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're here!" And the groom was absolutely stunned, like his jaw was hanging down, couldn't believe that we'd actually come. And so it was a good time. It was a lot of fun, and there were about 6 other pilgrims there with us that we had the night before had invited them over to our Airbnb and cooked them a traditional Costa Rican meal. And yeah, it was a really good time. And then I went to Pamplona, Spain for 2 weeks, which is one of my favorite cities along the Camino de Santiago. I think it's the best food town along the Camino. A lot of the Camino food is very bland. There's not a lot to it. But in Costa Rica, excuse me, in Pamplona, there's very, very good pinchos, and the tortilla, the what some people call Spanish omelet. They've just got some fantastic versions of that, and so I really, really enjoyed that food. And my time there was spent kind of pre-writing. I have 2 books that I'm trying to get out of my head, so I did a lot of note taking and doing some research for one of the books and doing some remembering for the memoir that I'm writing. So now I'm just getting. I went to Rome on my way here to Trieste, and so I'm just getting settled and getting ready to head to Milan this weekend.
Okay, great. Now tell me more about this book you're writing.
Well, I'm attempting to write two, but the first one is a memoir about my relationship with my dad, comparing and contrasting that to my relationship with my son through the lens of professional wrestling, as all three of us are fans of professional wrestling. So I'm doing a lot of memory work and just thinking about the bonds that my dad and I created by watching and going and seeing wrestling, and then my son discovering professional wrestling and being a fan, still as a fan, and just the bonds that he and I created, and some of the same things that I experienced with my dad, but also some different things, a different type of parenting, and say it's not better or worse, but just a different kind of parenting than I had from my father. So yeah, I'm excited to write it. My father is currently dealing with some brain cancer and probably won't make it the next couple of months. And so it's very poignant for me to try to get this out and make sure that I tell that story right.
Great. If your mind was an island,
Mm.
what would it look like?
Oh, very barren. Um, with pictures of all the people that I've met along my lifetime scattered across the beaches. I'm a big people person. I believe in the strength of relationships. I believe we can't get out of this world alone. We have to get through it with others, and so I try my best as much as I can to um, build strong relationships with people. And I get comments about that all the time. When I was in Spain, one of my good friends, Edie, we were talking about the Camino, and I said, I don't remember the name of that city, but we were doing this. And he's like, I don't remember the name of that city, but we were doing this. And he's like, you can't remember the names of any of the cities you visited, but you remember everybody's name. And that's a kind of a gift, I think, or a skill that I learned from my dad. He was a salesman, but at the same time, not the schwarmy type of person that likes trying to use you. He really went out of his way to get to know people and care for them in different ways. And so I've learned that from my father, and I've tried to replicate that most of my life.
Okay. If you had to pick any character in a book, movie, or television show,
Oof.
who is most similar to you?
Oh wow. um, I wish it was. I wish it was Ted Lasso. I think that's who I'd hope it would be, or at least who I strive to be. I love that show. That character is so much of TV today is just garbage, and what I call train wreck TV. That it's just just bad things keep on happening to people, and the people aren't redeemable. And for the most part, everybody on that show at some level, even the people that are mean and nasty, at some point in the show they're going to be redeemed, and that a lot has to do with Ted and how he treats people, and which I think is phenomenal, right? And to let the small stuff roll off his back like he does, and the big stuff too. I think that I try to do that as much as possible. It's just also probably a trait that my father gave me. He had friends for many decades, and kept them even when those people mistreated him or took advantage of him, and not in a way that made him be a fool, but in a way that made him a good human being. And so I have two friends from seventh grade that we've been friends with almost 35 years now, over 35 years. and they're both very conservative. I'm very liberal, and we let that stuff kind of fall to the wayside for the most part, and remember that we're just humans, and that we've been through a lot in our lives. We've been through a lot together, and that's the most important thing. So, and I think Ted's that same way. It's win or lose, we're gonna keep on going, and yeah, probably Ted Lasso if I was lucky enough at the end of the day, when my time's up, for someone to compare me to him would be a dream.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. What's the best way to start the morning?
Oh, best way to start a morning is with a Spanish omelet and cafe con leche. Um, I like savory and sweet at the same time. And I'm a big breakfast person. I love breakfast very, very much. So I need to have breakfast. I'm missing the savory part of breakfast right now in Italy. I'm sure I can find it, but it's kind of hard. I can definitely get the cafe latte very easily, but having to deal with croissants, chocolate croissants every morning is like, come on, give me some egg, give me some bacon, give me something, you know, that's got a little savory saltiness to it. So, but yeah, I just when I was in Spain on the Camino, I just fell in love with the Spanish omelet, and I love the Camino so much because you start walking in the morning at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and then by 10 o'clock, after walking for 3 hours, it'd be time to eat again. And we call second breakfast, and that I'll definitely be looking for a Spanish omelet or what they call tortillas. That I'm like, gotta find a tortilla. The bar doesn't have a tortilla. We're moving on. We're not stopping until we find a tortilla. So definitely a good, hearty, warm breakfast.
Fabulous. So, yeah. What is the most comfortable piece of clothing you own?
Oh, uh, is it a type of clothing or a specific piece?
Anything.
Okay. Well, it's got to be a t-shirt. I love my t-shirts. I have I've had to several times in the last couple of decades like go through and say, okay, that one's got to go, that one's got to go, but I still wind up having 60 or 70 t-shirts in my drawers. So I love a good t-shirt uh, and jeans, t-shirt and jeans. Um, Hardest part of having like a real job is is having to wear something that's buttoned down or ties. There's no way I can wear a tie. Uh, so t-shirts, yeah, I love a good soft, nice fitting t-shirt.
Okay. Fabulous. What's the craziest thing you've done besides crashing your friend's wedding?
Yeah, that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
I think this. I actually said in the opener that I am taking a gap year right now, an adult gap year, and part of that process for me is to try to say I'm only going to do things I enjoy and that make me happy. And so my partner joined me on the Camino for the last 5 days, and the first day she was on there walking with me, we got up late, had a really good breakfast, and got started way past the normal time. So we're pretty much on the trail by ourselves most of that day. And to get a certificate of completion for the Camino, you have to do at least 100 kilometers of walking. 200 if you're on a bike, but 100 meters if you're walking. And so there's mile markers or kilometer markers, all way markers all along the Camino. And so the 100 kilometer marker is usually typically everybody stops and take their picture there. And we were coming up to it. I knew it was a couple kilometers away, and I said, I think I want to get naked and get my picture taken naked at the 100 kilometer marker. And my partner was like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think I want to do that." And she goes, "Okay." And she's so wonderful. I'm so blessed to have her because she supports me, and just even the crazy stuff that I do, she's always supportive. And so we got there and to the 100 kilometer marker, and she said, "Are you going to do it?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to do it." And so there was one couple that passed us, and then as I was taking off my clothes, a British guy passed us, and he said to her, he's like, "Do you want to take yours off too? And I'll take the picture for you." And she's like, "No, no, I'm good." And so yeah, so I took off all my clothes, grabbed my hat and put it in front of my stuff, and she took the picture and I posted it on Instagram. So I don't know which is crazier, taking the picture or posting it on Instagram, but it was fun. It was just something I wanted to do, so I did it. And I think that's a major key in life. So many times I could have talked to you. I had probably had a kilometer, 2 kilometers to talk myself out of that, but it was just like, nope, I want to do this. I think it's funny. What other people say is not important, and I'm just going to do it. I think I lost 100 Instagram followers that day. So it was, but I'm just like, hey, look, if that's what's going to cause you to unfollow me on Instagram, then there's probably going to be a couple more things that are going to do the same. So that's all right. I'm not interested in having hundreds of thousands of followers. I'm more interested in having people that are excited about what I'm doing, and that it's impacting their lives. So that was probably the craziest thing I've done.
Great. What was the funniest moment you've experienced?
Oh my goodness. Oh, there's a lot of them. Wow. I wasn't prepared for that question. Yeah, I'll take a pass on that one.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's cool.
Yeah.
What is the strangest dream you've had?
Oh, when I was doing youth work, I would have this really weird dream about um, me on a battlefield surrounded by lots of young people, like overtaking a bluff, and like I've got the brave heart, my sword extended, and my cape's flowing, and young people are rushing by me, and I could never figure out what, and I had it multiple times. Like I could never figure out what we were fighting or what we were going to win. And so it was just weird from that standpoint that I just could never figure out the meaning. Um, and it might have been a little narcissistic at some level, but it was, because I thought I was a leader, and it was just weird because I could never figure out what are we battling here. So yeah, I think that's the weirdest one I've ever had, and I had it multiple times. So that was another weird part of it. Just it was the same sequence over and over. So charging a hill, yelling out battle cries, and fighting something, but I could never figure out what it was.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. How would you live your life in a zombie apocalypse scenario?
You familiar with Costco?
Yeah.
Yeah, I live in a Costco. I've thought about this question a lot. Actually, I'm a huge comic book nerd. So, I would drive to the nearest Costco and try to get inside, because you've got generators, you've actually have beds, there's clothing, probably a washing machine or two, definitely plenty of food. And usually they have those big steel doors. They're big brick, buildings that are pretty impenetrable, and then they've got those strong steel doors. And I figure, you know what, that's probably the better than any place that you could be, to wait out, to wait them out. I think is probably the best. I saw a article one time that the guy had written that he did the statistical analysis of how long it would take before all the zombies kind of like just stopped. And it wasn't too long. So I think it was like 3 months or something like that the virus would eat up the zombies or something. I don't know how he did it, but I'm like, I could last 3 months in a Costco. I think I could do well, and probably help some other people at the same time. Just, make sure, definitely be living in a Costco.
Cool. Would you consider yourself to be an extrovert or an introvert?
It's I think I'm in between, and I know that's kind of a a back out of the question kind of answer, but I think mostly I'm an extrovert, but I need my time to recharge, and when that happens, I have to be an introvert. And so one of the things on the Camino, it's 30 days of walking. And my goal in going was to meet other people and hang out and get to know folks. And to do that, you really have to be extroverted, and be able to talk to people and get to know them. And so meeting new people. And the day before I met my partner, the people I had been walking with were starting to move at a quicker pace than me. So I took the day to have a day of silence. So I'm going to have a day of silence. I wanted to go to a city called Samos that has this old monastery, and I was going to not talk the whole day because I knew I wouldn't see anybody, and I thought I wouldn't see anybody. And then I'll go to the church service that night, and after the church service, I'll break my silence. So
Hmm.
I walked into Samos around 10 o'clock, and at the cafe right there near the monastery were like 3 or 4 of my friends. They had decided that they were going to change routes and go that way. They didn't wind up staying there that night. They kept moving. But for about an hour and a half, we had a really bad game of charades going on because I just refused. Like, I've done this all day long, and I need this before I get to my partner so I can be energetic when she gets there and be recharged. So it's not a lot of the time, but I most that I need to be introverted, but I am an extrovert most of the time. It's part of um, traveling alone like this that can be difficult, is being able to be that extrovert. That's one of the reasons I chose places where I had friends, that I could see every once in a while when I'm here, and that's good for me. It means I'm being more introverted than extroverted as I write the book.
Okay, great. Where do you spend most of your free time? Or what do you do in your free time?
Uh, yeah. It's all free time right now in adult gap year. I know gap years are supposed to be structured, but I think it's definitely can give off the appearance that I just have free time all the time. Um, I do like social media, and but I also like walking, especially when I'm home. I have a rescued pit bull terrier, and I like to take her on walks and hang out with her. Um, yeah, yeah, mostly that reading. I read a lot of comic books, a lot of graphic novels, that kind of stuff.
Hmm, nice. Uh, and have you ever thought about retiring, or do you still want to keep on doing what you're doing right now?
I would love to do what I do right now. I've got a podcast. I'm trying to write a couple of books, and so and I'm really enjoying the podcast. It's a major part of what I'm doing for my gap year, and the whole purpose of my gap year of helping people start living an intentional life through crossing items off their bucket list. And so I have a show that drops every Friday, and I've been consistent with it where I've, for at least the last 3 or 4 months, and getting episodes out every week. I made sure that I got multiple episodes taped before I recorded, before I came on this trip, so that I wouldn't miss any weeks. That's one of my goals this year, is to have the whole year have a podcast drop every day, or excuse me, every week. And I know that that's a big part of this industry, is that consistency. There's 2.5, 2.7 million podcasts out there, but yet more than half of them are inactive. And then the ones that are active, it's like, what is active? Is it twice a month? Is it once a month? So I knew that I wanted to grow that, and one of the ways to do that was continuously put out episodes, and I love it. It's a lot of fun. Basically, the show consists of me interviewing people that have crossed something specific and intentional off their bucket list. So last week's episode was a gentleman that quit his Wall Street job and started the van life of just living out of his van and doing work out of it, being a nomad. I interviewed someone that's raised $1 million for charity, but I've also have episodes where someone got Arnold Schwarzenegger's autograph, and that was on their bucket list. They wanted to get Arnold Schwarzenegger's autograph, and so we talked about that. I interviewed someone that learned how to tap dance over the age of 60. It's very a lot of variety in guests, and it's just a joy to talk to people and hear their stories and the processes that they go through to cross those items off their list, the hows and the whys and the whats. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. So I potentially could see myself doing that for a very, very long time. and and I hope it's successful and that I can do that, and that would be great. I actually, to take this gap year, had to dip into my retirement fund pretty heavily, and it's the same things I go back to. I'm only doing things that make me happy. So even though I'm sacrificing that money, it's making me happy, and I'm okay with that. So if I can write a couple of books this year and get the podcast up and going and be able to monetize it, I'd be a happy person. That I could do that for a long time, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. What bad habits do you want to get rid of?
um, I've struggled with smoking for a long time. I've since I was 13, I think it's almost 39 years. Um, yeah, that would be the habit that I would. And there's months that I go without it, and months when I can't, and try to use a vape every once in a while, and it just goes back and forth. It's a real roller coaster. So I think that's one of the things that, as far as habits go, I would really like to break. I don't have too many vices. I don't drink, um, so yeah, but it's certainly not good for me, for sure. With my family history of heart disease and other things, it's not helpful. So I think that's probably the biggest habit that I have that I would like to um, get rid of. And I think I used to interrupt people and talk over them a lot. I'm trying to get rid of that and just not talking, just listening, and being intentful in my listening to gain information about the people that are around me, so that I can have quality relationships with them. I think that's something I've been working on for several years now. Just listening, and making that a good habit to have, and that's hard. A lot of times, it's very hard for people to just sit there and listen, and not just hear it, but actually ingest it into your brain and understand what's going on, so that some point down the line, as you're talking to that same person, you can say, "Oh, I remember when you said this," and I think it freaks people out sometimes, because I don't think people think that people are listening very well. So to what they have to say, and that it doesn't matter if you share. And I think it's important to share. So I'm constantly trying to remind myself just to listen.
Yeah, good for you.
Thanks.
And welcome. And that is all we have for this episode. It was really great having you here, Roger, telling about your travels around the world, ticking things off your bucket list, and the time you crashed your friend's wedding. Oh man, that was hilarious.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really appreciate
Uh,
you having me on.
you're welcome. And until next time, stay tuned for more.